Billy Corben got in here today and Mike Ryan attacked him in the cafeteria/kitchen. He's like, surprise me with an opinion. Surprise me. Bitcoin is in town and I want you to surprise me with an opinion. And then you gave him your Bitcoin opinion and Mike Ryan stared at you and said, totally unsurprising.
I didn't give him my Bitcoin opinion. I gave him my crypto opinion.
Which is even worse.
Right. Well, because CryptoCon.
Somehow a broad brush gets even more broad.
CryptoCon is in town, putting the con into CryptoCon.
Glad you workshopped that line.
And
killer.
Yeah.
Slade in here. There's some people are still laughing at it.
You have developed an enemy in Mike Ryan because some people find, and I'm not one of them, you're shouting about corruption, your indefatigable nature just appalled. They find your outrage exhausting.
What would be surprising to me, or a surprising opinion to me, is for Miami to reject fraud, to reject a sector in which criminality and fraud are rife, but of course we embrace it with open arms. We have events here. We have events here that are events hawking and shilling financial and investment instruments being headlined by Jordan Belfort, who, while he is a compelling character, mind you, I make documentaries about such compelling figures, he is a man who went to prison for bilking investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud, and he is headlining a conference.
So he served his debt to society. Thank you.
What I'm saying is that all of the people that are coming out of, it's the same thing that happened when the Cocaine Cowboys went to prison and they served 5, 10, 15 years. As they got out, they went into Medicare fraud, a great many of them, because that was the contemporary hustle at the time they were being released from prison. And so what's happening now is a lot of the people who were in the prior hustle in the stock market, in penny stocks, in Maggot Mile, in boiler rooms, are now shilling imaginary coins. And I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm not talking about Ethereum or the blockchain or Web3 in general. I'm talking specifically about the significant majority of the market that is diluting diluting legitimate Bitcoin. That is like
made up number.
Mike's eyes are rolling into the back of his head.
It's old broad stroke Billy back at it. You're painting all the alternative coins the same way. First off, anyone
alternative coins?
Yeah, altcoins. Because you said Bitcoin is good and Ethereum is good, and then you're lumping everybody in the same bin.
No, I didn't say
majority.
And
that joke of majority, which is not you don't know how the utilities of these coins that you're dismissing. You don't know how they serve an actual utility for where we're headed with a decentralized internet.
We have a mayor hawking a product that has zero utility and has lost 96% of its value. That's the only reason.
Coin. Yeah, but when you're talking about
Miami, that one's a fraud then. That one's a Ponzi scheme.
Miami coin doesn't matter.
It does matter when you have mayors and public officials.
It doesn't matter.
Outselling and promoting an unregulated
there is regulation.
Instrument.
There is regulation, and I would say that we just saw an executive order.
The market's not self-regulating.
It's not happening fast enough for you. We all learned about crypto maybe on average 3 years ago. And in 3 years, you have an executive order from the president, and you actually have self-regulation that is far faster than almost any other innovative form of currency ever. And I hate how you're just lumping in with crypto comes fraud. Yeah. I see that. It can be used for bad. At any cutting edge of innovation, there are always going to be assholes out there looking to take advantage of people that don't fully understand it. There's still assholes doing that right now with sectors that have been relegated for scores. There's still people with penny stocks. There's still people in legitimate, air quotes, legitimate financial sectors that are still taking advantage of folks. What a straw man.
I don't support that either.
No, but you're making, every time you talk about crypto, it is almost as if you're making crypto the exclusive domain of this. And it's just for someone that sees the benefits, the utility in blockchain technology, how it is going to be an essential part of our future for you to be broad stroke Billy and not present that. You don't present the other side.
I agree with all of that. Now what? What's the other side?
Well, I just want to thank you for agreeing with me. I'm glad I changed your mind about something because you've been way too broad stroke about this. There hasn't been that other side.
Miami coin wouldn't even have been on my radar if we didn't have public officials.
No one gives a
shit. If we didn't have public officials out selling and pumping and dumping a fake coin and a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And currently in the crypto market,
politicians. How about predatory loans for the housing market? I understand you're going to agree with me and say that's all bad.
I agree with you. It's all bad.
Yeah, and it was all co-signed by politicians too.
I agree with you. That's all bad.
Yeah, it is all bad. But you don't say that with
I
regards
just
to
said
crypto.
that. I did say.
appreciate it.
I did say.
No.
I
You
have
said
been
it
saying
after
it for
someone
weeks.
called you on your broad stroke Billy. Now, thank you for agreeing.
I think we can bring up the tape where I've said, I don't know why I referred to it as tape, as if we're
because
running.
you just go Bitcoin and Ethereum, and anytime you talk about altcoins, it is just the
We're talking
exclusive
about-
capital of ne'er-do-wells, and it's just classic broad stroke Billy.
I'm exclusive. I
I
like
can't
that a lot.
believe that
Actually,
you
I like
went.
that a
You
lot.
both. You did.
I'm sorry I didn't say that. Actually,
You did ne'er-do-wells, and you decided to use the measurement of Abraham Lincoln's scores for some reason.
Well, the
as
country's
well.
still relatively young. I get reminded of that every time I go into history. It's like we're still making mistakes in crypto. While everything about crypto is probably moving too fast for everyone right now, I concede that. As someone that has plenty of crypto investments, I still struggle with the basic concepts of every individual coin I'm trying to invest in.
Sure.
There's a lot of buyer beware. There's a lot of buyer beware with everything. A lot of people are trying to take advantage of you.
With everything?
No, I'm
What
not
is
making
that? But talk about a general statement.
No, I'm
What
not
does
trying to
that
make a
mean,
rational
buyer-
in
There's
the
buyer
financial
beware-
sector with investments.
There's buyer beware with everything in Miami. I agree. And when you when you look at a hustle town that subsists from hustle to hustle, the economy of Miami is effectively works like an altcoin.
Yeah.
It works like a
But
cryptocurrency. It works like an MLM or a pyramid scheme or more likely a Ponzi
right.
scheme.
So when you say something like CryptoCon, which I haven't gone to, but I read some things about it. A lot of these things are about education and information.
Oh no, they're not. They're MLM meetings. They're cult
broad
meetings.
stroke
A lot
Billy.
of them.
Broad
A lot
stroke
of them
Billy.
are cult. You said a lot of them are
You
about
think that
education.
this is just a pump
They're
and
not
dump
about
convention.
education. First of all, there's countless conferences happening right now. There's not just one event.
Yeah.
There is a Bitcoin.
It's like Winter Music Conference.
It's
There's
like
plenty of
there's 100 of
options.
these
We are the
satellite.
center of this world right now, correct? This is the biggest
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah,
This
we
is the
welcome
biggest
them.
one there's ever been.
The money laundering capital of the Americas and the fraud capital of the United States is absolutely crypto central right now.
and
The
it's got
crypto
another-
cowboys are all here.
It's got another toy to play with, but I do think that there hasn't been enough pushback on the good that crypto can do. The fact that it is moving at a lightning pace towards regulation, which is actually a hugely positive thing. If you're bullish on crypto, you're happy that the United States and Joe Biden took the
I
steps
agree.
that they made. Everyone thinks that this is a good thing, and I understand. Look, you do serve a purpose by waving your arms around saying this is bad.
Oh, God bless you.
Unfortunately, far too often you're presenting it as this is all bad. And I felt it was my duty
I never
to
said
come
that.
in and puck back.
Never
against
said
you.
that.
Okay.
I never said it was all bad.
No,
I never said that.
Not a direct quote. I'm talking
Okay,
about
but tell me
presentation.
about Miami Crypto Month. What are your thoughts here before Mike?
Don't make this all bad.
They also the county, for whatever reason, also has a declaration that it's like fertilizer month as well, which makes sense because the county commission's full of shit. But I don't even know where that
Once
came
again,
from.
you killed back here.
Yeah.
That was a good
Chris Cody
workshop.
Chris Cody had to
Yes,
gather
yes,
himself. He almost choked on a piece of food. You surprised him with that.
Chris Cody got distracted by the idea of crypto cowboys.
Riding
He
it on
loved
horses,
the ideas
like
of
boots,
clop,
like, is
clop,
this, like,
clopping
real, like,
through.
actual cowboys.
I like
or
the literal translation of that. What I mean is, I mean hustlers, and I mean I could also say that the Cocaine Cowboys had a little bit more integrity and honesty and self-awareness about who they were and the fact that they were involved in something that was criminal. What I see from a lot, first of all, I always say that, and this line has been well workshopped through the years, and I often say it unprompted, that LA is where you go when you want to be somebody, New York is where you go when you are somebody, and Miami is where you go when you want to be somebody else. Okay, it's always been a sunny place for shady people, and that stands with crypto as well, because you're right. It's not just the content, it's the presentation. So why are all of the major figures and leaders of Miami tech and Miami crypto and the VC community, they were all Me Too'd out of Silicon Valley? Okay, that's what we get down here. That is the leadership we have come to expect. That is the hustle mentality. That everybody's the great Gatsby.
Right.
Everybody's the great Gatsby
You do a great
down
job
here.
You do a great job every week articulating that is a fundamentally Miami problem, except when it comes to crypto. Because because you make it also a crypto thing and not just necessarily a Miami
I'm saying
thing.
this is why Miami attracts and has always attracted these kinds of people.
The
This is
ne'er-do-wells
just the next
that are looking to take advantage of
ne'er-do-wells
people. At the
again.
cutting
I
edge
don't
of
think
it.
that
Is
Billy.
this a bet? How many times you can say ne'er-do-wells?
I don't think that Billy actually has much of an objection at all to crypto in general. I think he has the largest objection to this mayor funding something and supporting something that doesn't have anything to do with his power, that seems to be for personal gain. I think the Miami coin is personally objectionable to him because it's a misuse of power.
And I have an objection to him being so busy this weekend at making a speech in an NFT conference and these other events to actually do his fucking job and veto this outrageous, corrupt redistricting map that these commissioners put in place as a result of absolutely embarrassing, corrupt, and racist horse trading. Okay? He was too busy at a crypto conference because he's done. He's checked out of Miami. He's been reelected as our mayor for the next 4 years, but he is checked out. He's running for president and trying to bomb Cuba, or whatever dumb shit he's saying now.
You're talking about Coconut Grove's redistricting?
Yes. And diminishing not only the tearing apart in 3 parts the oldest neighborhood in Miami, but destroying a black voting bloc, a minority in this community that already has very little voice, and in fact got sold out by the only black representative, the only black commissioner on the dais, Christine King, who is a disciple of pay-to-play Keon Hardeman, so it's no wonder. She's just got her pocketbook open at all times, waiting for someone to make it rain in there, and that's what she did. She did the district dirty. She did the people of Coconut Grove dirty. And ¿dónde está Mayor Ponzi Postalita?
Billy, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying right now. I think it's, and I'm going to regret saying this, I think it's further confirmation that your voice down here matters, which is why I'm making an appeal to you to please, when you're talking about crypto, don't be broad stroke Billy. Just go ahead and highlight where this could be good, where the fact that it's getting relegated more quickly than any other financial sector in modern history is a good thing.
I agree.
That most people are actually aspiring to use this for good. There are always going to be bad guys out there, always, and you only highlight the bad ones.
At the moment, however, the market, and this is not broad strokes, this is the market is even worse than it is in U.S. dollars or cash in terms of how concentrated the wealth is on a fraction of the top % of coin holders.
Right.
And so it's actually not serving the function that it was, the spirit of the thing.
You need more people to get in on crypto.
Yes.
So you can have that wealth distribution.
You know what that sounds like to me? Sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
No, that's
we need more people. We need more people to...
you need more people to go to a commodity, to make the commodity value soar.
Right, but it's not a commodity. It's supposed to be it's supposed to have utility. It's supposed to
there's
be
explanations
a currency,
why
right?
The people that got in, that were smart enough to get in, you're making it, or at least after a year and a half's worth of proof of concept, where they all of a sudden had the financial means. The very early start of crypto, these were people that were mining and got their position. Why they own so much of crypto is because they got in on the ground floor when it was literally worthless.
Right, but where do we go from there? That becomes a top-down proposition at that point. It doesn't become this decentralized, democratized currency.
And
Bitcoin
is a unique one because at a certain point they're going to stop making new ones. So the commodity is going to be even rarer. But yeah, there's a lot of education. What separates a commodity, which is fine. You can invest in a commodity. Plenty of people do.
But these events are not education.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
All right, but I don't think
that's not
true.
the sole purpose of everything. When you're getting Flow Rider to perform on your yacht, I'm not sure that there's a lot of people that says, and this is Polkadot, and it's essential in a decentralized internet to take one form of code from one place to another. No, people just want to see apple-bottom jeans and boots with a fur.
Last week on the show, I felt like I was in an Orlando airport hotel ballroom listening to an MLM pitch. Okay, and I know you're going to say, well,
that's everywhere.
Miami coin is the rarity, or Miami coin is the outlier.
There's a lot of shit coins.
There's me out of that coin. I believe that. I'm fully vested in Eleven's new cryptocurrency, Kulo coin. That's where I am. Oh, that worked better than some of the workshop shit. There you go.
Kaka coin as well. Do you have anything on Miami Crypto Month that has been left unsaid so that Mike Ryan is enjoying when you come in here, and he's enjoying rushing right at you and headbutting you.
And then leaving. It's a hit and run.
Because everyone just nods along as he bores you to death with a take you've heard a million times, and I'm just trying to put a governor in there. Speaking of boring people to death and actually challenging you,
yes,
it was revealed that the University of Miami is going to build the biggest and best practice facilities in the nation. And I'm wondering if you could take time away and some resources away from trying to save Miami from all of us drowning, literally, and maybe, for once in your life, step up to the plate.
That's right.
And help get us right back where we belong. I'm talking
back,
about
baby.
a donation.
The U is back,
Let's
baby.
pump.
Oh no, I'm putting my money into, my investment is in democracy. My investment is to saving, and Kulo coin, but my investment
When do they
is
throw parades for triumphs in democracy? Well, actually quite a bit.
Well, authoritarians like parades more.
Mission
but,
accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really have nothing more to say about CryptoCoin or CryptoCon week, other than to say
Month.
That's right. Other than it's a whole month.
You're sorry for your presentation.
By the way,
it's been irresponsible.
Do you know what day it started on?
CryptoCon?
Yeah.
No.
Crypto month.
April 1st.
April Fools.
Yeah. So, but what I will say about it is that I love the conference business. I love the convention business. I love that Miami has that and attracts that. I think
it's
that's
not a bad
fantastic.
thing that Francis Suarez is trying to. I know you're just categorizing it as a safe haven for the worst of the worst.
He's a con man.
But Miami being on the cutting edge, or at least on the forefront of welcoming crypto, in 20 years' time, you could look back on that and say that was actually a good move by him.
He's a con man. Eventually, this bubble will burst.
So no credit.
Eventually, this bubble will burst, and the people holding the bag are not going to be the rich people and the top fraction of a percent of people who currently hold this very valuable coin. It is going to be working class people and poor people and homeless people and minorities.
It's always who's holding the bag.
Well, that
change the world, Billy.
What I'm saying is that what history will say is the tenure of Mayor Francis Suarez was the worst and most corrupt in the history of the city, which I agree is quite an achievement.
That is amazing.
I agree that's quite an achievement. Okay, it started with him turning City Hall into a literal crime scene when his communications director lured a teenage boy to a conference room next to the mayor's office and molested him, which thus far has cost taxpayers over $100,000 in settling with that victim. It has gone on to the Magic City gentrification district, okay, a corrupt deal in which a city commissioner got a $37 million slush fund in order to gentrify Little Haiti. There will be no more Haitians living in Little Haiti in our lifetimes. Okay, it'll also probably be waterfront property at some point, pretty late in our lifetimes. You have a mayor who has helped to foster the most unaffordable housing market in the entire country while serving as a commissioner and mayor, during which nearly zero affordable housing units were built when we already knew we were in a crisis that has only been hastened by his chicanery and his fraud and his
chicanery or chicanery?
Yes.
Which one is it?
Everything's Canes with you. Everything.
It's both of
Everything's
them.
Canes with you.
Okay?
Okay?
Also, since this is because Miami, if I see one more investigative news piece on Dave Portnoy's dealings that have him photographed at the University of Miami wearing cane stuff, I'm gonna flip a fucking lid. This is bullshit. It's a choice.
What is this, a pizza review?
Dave
What's
Portnoy has done plenty of photo shoots in his day. You can subscribe to Getty Images and find literally any other place he stepped foot on. He went there once, goddammit. And every piece that has been done on him over the last few months has him right next to Sebastian the Ibis. It's a choice. I know what you're doing. Fuck off. It's bad.
Moving on to other subjects, Billy.
I wasn't even done with my list of things as to why Francis Suarez will be known as the worst. And is he going to leave before I'm done with the list?
Well, is he
going to leave before I'm done with the list?
That he wants to be surprised by your opinion. I think you've chronicled much of this. Is there anything else on Francis Suarez that has been unsaid by you over the years?
Well, last but not least, morale in this city is the worst that anyone has ever seen it. I have a list of over 30 senior professionals, directors, deputy directors of important city offices who have either resigned or been forced out since like February of 2020. That includes city managers, assistant city managers.
Chief resilience officer.
Just this week, the city of Miami has lost its third of three, by the way, chief resilience officer since 2020. She just got hired after a nationwide search. She moved from Atlanta on January 19th. What's the date today? Friday.
So 3 months. 3 months.
Less than 3 months later, she's like, I resign. Get me the out of here. Okay? Because I did that myself.
You're
you
saying,
don't
have to,
wow.
You're saying Miami morale is at an all-time low.
What I'm saying is in the city government, the perception of this as a functional city that is pro-business and anti-regulation is a facade.
Yeah.
It's just like the Miami coin pitch. If you scratch just slightly beneath the surface, you hit water. It's a facade at sea level.
I've also heard you say in your lifetime that nothing brings this great city together quite like the Miami Hurricanes football program being successful, which is why I'm coming to you with a pledge card. All right, Billy? We're getting at least $5,000 to this
Kane
facility.
Kane coin.
No.
I'm sorry, Patrick Stanley from last week. He will match that.
I will match. I'll match whatever it is that Billy is funding here. Is there anything else?
I'm putting you down for 10
that you want people to know about how appalling it is that after 3 months on the job, many people might not even know what a chief resilience officer is.
They're apparently a person who comes to Miami and then resigns. That's apparently they spend their entire tenure prepping the resignation letter is apparently what it is. Well, let me tell you what a resilience officer is supposed to be doing. We have the most vulnerable city in the world. We have some of we have billions of dollars in coastal real estate at risk from sea level rise, which we've all witnessed over the course of our lifetimes and talked about on this show, hastening just in the last 10 years. And that officer is supposed to say how to make the city of Miami more resilient. How do we sustain this city beyond just the tenure of Francis Suarez? Because I don't think it's going to survive that. What the mayor's office actually told one of the previous resilience officers who has since left the city, obviously, they all have, all three of them, in just 2 years. And this one after 2 months on the job, after moving from a state away to be here for this job. The last one left, she said, to spend more time with her family, and 2 months later took a similar job with the county. So we obviously know that was like, it's like Urban Meyer, spending more time with his family and then taking a new job because he wanted to spend less time with his family, I presume. But what the mayor's office told a former chief resilience officer at the time that they were in the job was that the city does not prioritize resilience because because it's too long term. There's no immediate PR or political benefits from it. I'm going to rest my case there, other than to say that when you look at this list of over 30 directors and deputy directors and chiefs of staff and city managers and police chiefs that have left this city in just the last 2 years because morale is at an all-time low. I've talked to the people in the city. They are scared.
How could you not be?
They go to work petrified every day. And the people, and by the way, the things that I'm saying about Francis Suarez in this city and Joe Carollo, people talk about this privately all the time. Everybody knows what a clown Francis Suarez is. They're scared to talk about it. People should not be scared of their own government. This isn't Cuba. This isn't Russia. We can talk shit about our leaders. In fact, we have an obligation to be skeptical and to hold them accountable. I supported County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. I endorsed her and encouraged other people to vote for her. And now I call her out. That's our responsibility.
You got discouraged very fast there. I want to get to a couple more things with you, including a guest we're about to have on here, to, again, further Billy Corben's cause of trying to get Ron Magill to run for office under the campaign slogan of Run, Ron, Run. We're going to figure out in the coming weeks here how we get the audience behind this. But a couple of news items from the week locally and in the state of Florida that I wanted to get to, one of them involving Governor Ron DeSantis, but a traffic crash report on the accident involving Miami Commissioner Alex Diaz de la Portilla shows, and you've been talking about this for a while, that his sergeant-at-arms was at fault and that de la Portilla did not have an ID on him. What do you make of that story, and what are the updates that people need to know? You laugh, but it's just kind of unbelievable.
We talked about this before, this ridiculous car accident. The commissioner was riding back from, I think, like a wake or a funeral or something, being chauffeured by what they call a sergeant-at-arms. And sergeant-at-arms is this bullshit security program. It's like a secret service for the commissioners and the mayor. That these officers, these sergeants at arms, get paid 6 figures a year to basically run errands, be chauffeurs, stand around. It's one of the cushiest, safest, bullshittiest jobs in the city, and they are handsomely, if not arguably, overpaid for it, just to make the commissioners really look and feel important. It's a total bullshit ego boost. And so this guy's after hours driving the commissioner and one of his young female staffers home from this private event. This is not a city event or a public event. And the guy runs a light and crashes into and totals a Mercedes. And what we didn't know until this report came out that you just mentioned was that the driver of the city rental car, the city has a deal with a rental car company to rent these vehicles, that these big SUVs that they drive around in. But this sergeant at arms was at fault for the accident. But it gets even shadier because the whole thing turns into this really like Keystone Copsy kind of cover-up. Detective Stanley Paul Noel was the driver. And then you have an officer, E. Carter, from the Miami Police Department who showed up and was like, and knew right away, something's not right about this. The next thing you know, the city attorney is on the phone. The city police chief is on the phone. Usually, a car crash does not require the highest level of the executive branch of the government to intervene here, but trying to tell the officer how to fill out a crash report that you would assume this officer has filled out countless times over the course of their career and still manages to deliberately screw it up. They don't get an ID from individual one or passenger one in the city-owned vehicle, or the city-rented vehicle, I should say. That was Alex Diaz de la Portilla, refused to provide ID, but obviously the officer knows who that is. The second passenger, his young female staffer, is not mentioned at all. This is really bad for several reasons. Number one, I spoke to police sources who say this should have been done by the book and then some. Why? Because city taxpayers are liable for this accident. So what you have is you have a city commissioner who's involved, a police officer who's involved, a staffer from the city commissioner's office, and of course inevitable litigation from the passenger of the totaled Mercedes who got hit and was not at fault here. And now what? Now you have a mess of a police report. What if this female staffer decides, you know what? I have such severe injuries from this, I can't work anymore. The city taxpayers need to pay me to work. But they say, well, wait, you weren't even in this accident report. Well, now I'm going to depose the commissioner. I'm going to depose the officer. And everybody looks like an idiot. The officer should have done his job is what he should have done. And the police chief, by the way, the new police chief, Manny Morales, who was sworn in as Joe Carollo, Commissioner Como Mierda, played the Godfather theme on his cell phone after they fired the previous police chief for calling them a mafia and saying that
somebody
were
was still trying to get on the show that
Yes.
Roy calls every week trying to get that person the invitation to the show. Are you getting, is everyone ignoring you at this point? Not returning your emails? How's this going?
Yeah, they see my name and I'm straight to spam apparently.
It's true. But the police chief, Manny Morales, the brand new police chief, revealed at a city commission meeting just a couple weeks ago that as a result of this accident and alleged cover-up, he is the subject of a Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigation into this accident and cover-up. So he's been on the job how many months, and he is already the subject of a criminal investigation. Ay, Dios mío.
Sí, ay, Dios mío. Last thing here before we force Ron Magill to run for office.
Hashtag run, run, run.
In 2022, we find ourselves with a Matt Gaetz still in office that I don't believe at any other time in human history the person with this kind of allegation around him could still be in office. But DeSantis' staff intervened in a public records request related to a former appointee who is reportedly connected to the federal sex trafficking investigation that involves Gaetz. That seems like it would be a violation of Florida public records laws. What do you make of this story?
It is a violation of Chapter 119, Florida's so-called sunshine laws, which purport to enforce and promote so-called government in the sunshine, which means that the files and records that are in the hands of custodians that are paid by and work for the public have to furnish those records. Those records don't belong to them or politicians or bureaucrats or the government. They belong to the people and the press, and anybody who wants them need to be able to access them. It's pretty typical, particularly of the Florida legislature over the last 20 years, to try to tear away at those rights, make it harder for us to access that. And a lot of offices, government offices know how to usurp that. For example, they'll come to you and be like, oh, you want those records? We're allowed to charge a reasonable fee for our time and redactions and photocopies and what have you. So that'll be $11,000 or even $800. They create a bar that's just too high for most people to surpass in order to just obtain our records. Rick Scott, it turns out, he and his staff and his cabinet were using private emails. Instead of using their government email, we're using private emails to conduct government business to keep it a secret. And then they were sued. And not only were they sued, but we paid to defend this case as taxpayers of Florida, and then we paid to settle the case. We spent millions of dollars defending the governor and other public officials from covering up their emails and their correspondence about public business. And then we paid hundreds of thousands of dollars on top of that to settle the lawsuit. And we never even got the emails. We never even got the public records that were subject of the lawsuit. We just got the bill for millions of dollars to cover up the corruption and the fuckery of Rick Scott and the Florida government. And Ron DeSantis is doing exactly the same thing. True to tradition of these Republican Florida governors, he's trying to cover up public records. Again, these are public records. These belong to us. So a Matt Gaetz associate, Halsey Beshears, who is apparently involved in possibly the subject of this federal sex trafficking investigation that we've been hearing about now for, the better part of a year now.
I just can't believe that Gaetz is still in office. It's one, I mean, even by the standards of today's politics, that one I cannot remember at any time in my lifetime that would be allowed to be so, that somebody wouldn't be filled with such shame that they would resign that position.
It's like when we talked about all the people who have left the city of Miami. In any other real city, that would be a major scandal, that all of these people are just leaving the city. Instead, it barely warrants a mention from Joey Fletchis and the Miami Herald. Oh, somebody else left. This is not just natural turnover. This is excessive, and it speaks to a toxicity and a deep-rooted systemic corruption in the city government that nobody is actually talking about or covering here. And it's the same thing here. Florida, we become so immune. We're like abuse victims from our own government. We become so immune to this corruption that we kind of let it go. And so Beshears and Gaetz, Florida congressmen, they've been named in a grand jury subpoena related to that ongoing federal sex trafficking investigation. And Click Orlando, the network affiliate in Central Florida, requested some public records. Beshears was in public office. He was assigned to be a public official in which he obviously amassed certain records and related to his expenses that were requested. And the governor's office intercepted this request. Once the files had been accumulated and prepared and were ready to be turned over, the governor's office says, we need to do a secondary review, which is not at all what the law allows. It's not at all what Ashley Moody, the Attorney General of Florida, allows in her handbook dealing with how these things are supposed to be handled. And currently, Ashley Moody either has no comment or is effectively tacitly endorsing this illegality, which is preventing now for over 2 months, preventing these public records from coming to light, because clearly the governor is protecting a political ally and potentially his own interests, which becomes a really compelling issue. Now, what is it that Ron DeSantis is hiding in terms of these public records related to potential subjects of a federal sex trafficking investigation?
From one Ron to another, Billy Corben continues to try and get Ron Magill to run for office. We will talk to somebody who has done the exhaustive research and polling needed to find out whether Ron Magill is a viable candidate next. Billy Corben is indefatigable. He has poured resources and time into summoning this expert, Fernand Amandi. He's the managing partner, Ben Dixon and Amandi, and he is basically running poll numbers that will tell us whether Ron is a viable thing, whether Ron Magill as a candidate. I don't know how many thousands of dollars, Billy, you have amassed in order to do this kind of polling, but it is comprehensive polling with what kind of margin for error, as this gentleman tells us how viable Ron Magill's chances would be if he ran for office.
Well, Fernand has been doing this his entire professional life, I believe, so I'll let him get into it. But this is a scientific political poll. This is a company. How long has Ben Dixon Amandi been around, Fernand?
It's going to be 45 years. So yeah, we got some circa decades under our belt here.
Yeah. So so Fernand, how many, in order to do a poll like this, how many calls did you have to make last week?
It's funny, Billy, because you end up doing about 400 total interviews, but to get 400 completed interviews, you got to go through something like 15,000 calls, because a lot of people got other things going on. The last thing they're going to want to do is participate in a poll. It doesn't change the accuracy. It just sometimes mean you got to make some more calls to get people to finally go all the way through it.
Right. And how long does it take to take the poll? If you're on the phone, once you get someone on the phone?
Typically, this was not a very long poll, so this one didn't really go more than 10 minutes, which is good because people are more likely to just cycle it out if it's a poll that's 15 minutes or less, as this one was.
But if you don't get through all of it with one person, you have to start all over again, right? In order to get the sample size that you need.
Oh yeah, you can't basically present results unless everybody goes through all of the questions in the instrument, as was the case with our.
How accurate is this? What's the margin for error?
The margin of error, Dan, is plus or minus 4.9 percentage points, which basically means in statistical probabilities, every numerical finding, you can basically either add 5 points to it or take it away. And within 96, 97 percentile, you're going to get the accuracy of the state of play at the time the poll was conducted.
So as we previously discussed, Fernand and I and Debbie Merkesel-Powell, who was in that seat in that congressional district prior to Carlos Jimenez winning 2 years ago, we approached Ron Magill as a person who lives in the district, which the current representative does not, and a person who cares about his neighbors and his friends and the wildlife and the environment in that district, to consider running for office. He told us, no, we did make, we'll call it a deal or what have you, that we would run this poll and attempt to entice him with the results of the poll. Because maybe we were wrong. Maybe Ron is not as popular and well liked as we believe that he is. And so we went to science.
And what does the polling show you with a 4.9% margin of error?
So first off, Dan and Billy and everybody watching and listening, if Billy Beane were a pollster, right? Like if he were doing the Moneyball approach, or Bill James were taking sabermetrics, when you're doing a poll of an incumbent member of Congress, the magic number is 50%. Anything under 50% says that incumbent is vulnerable, they're in trouble. Anything above 50% says, well, the higher they're above 50%, the more likely they are to retain the seat. So the first thing I wanted to look at was to see, hey, is Ron Magill even viable? Because we know incumbents overwhelmingly have the advantage for re-election. That's just the way American politics works. Regardless of whether they're the Republican incumbent or even the Democratic incumbent, incumbency is the most powerful metric. So what we did is we started by first finding out what is the current congressman's approval rating and his recognition rate. And what we found is he has only a 39% approval rating to a 27% unfavorable rating, which means, again, in pollster speak, he's above water, he's a plus 12, but over a third of the voters in this district don't either recognize him or know enough about him to have an opinion. So right there, that first metric says, all right, Carlos Jimenez is not the juggernaut that you might think he is. His on-base percentage is not through the roof if you were looking at it Moneyball style.
And this is a well-known quantity in local politics. This is a guy who has been in the public sector for his entire career, a guy who has been in elected office for decades as a county commissioner, as a county mayor in Miami-Dade, and now as a congressman. So he should be a well-known quantity at this point, no?
Oh my God, it's harder to think of anybody, running, and that's a member of Congress today, that has the type of name recognition, the type of exposure and notoriety, for better or for worse, than Carlos Jimenez, because to Billy's point, he was the mayor of the county for nearly 10 years. And of course, very high profile in his work on that. So right there off the bat, I see those numbers, 39 favorable, 27 unfavorable, as something that says this guy does not have it locked up, as a lot of folks might think.
And Ron Magill's numbers showed you what? How surprising were Ron Magill's numbers? And how rare is it for someone to be able to come up with whatever these numbers are against an incumbent of this kind of name recognition?
Well, and here's where your Dan and Billy and Congresswoman Murkisol Powell's instincts about Ron as a potentially viable candidate, I think, pay off, because right on the head-to-head in terms of recognition rate, Magill does much better than Carlos Jimenez. He's at 41% approval. In other words, 41% of the people that know him have a high opinion of him, and only 8% have an unfavorable opinion. So already he starts off not ever having announced or run or said anything. This is just speculative. Ron is at 41 favorable, 8% unfavorable, and then the other half of the electorate still doesn't quite recognize him just yet. But head-to-head, just on favorability and recognition, he does better than Carlos Jimenez.
Billy, your thoughts were what? Does this basically reflect through polling what you imagined was so? Is it even better? Is it worse? Is it just what you expected?
Well, just for starters, it's better than I expected. I'll say at this point of the poll, because there's more, at this point of the poll, it's about what I expected. I expected him to be high profile. I expected of the people who knew him to like him. I actually expected Carlos Jimenez to perform the way he did as well, because to know Carlos Jimenez is to dislike him, whereas to know Ron is to adore him, I believe. The more people that know Ron, the more people that love him, whereas the more people that know Carlos Jimenez, the more people go, how the hell does this guy get elected for anything?
What other polling numbers are there that are relevant here?
So I'll get to that in just one second, Dan, but I want to make a key point here, and I'll give you a little secret here for those that kind of free political consulting advice. The coin of the realm when you're running for office is really one thing. Do people know who the hell you are? Do you have name identification? Because if you don't, that's why you got to raise, in a market like Miami-Dade County or South Florida, millions of dollars just to get your name known and out there. Ron would come into this race, if he were cajoled into running, with already millions of dollars worth of name recognition, according to this poll that says he starts off with an advantage most first-time candidates would never have. So to your question, Dan, what does that mean when you actually start to pit Jimenez against Magill in a ballot test? Well, first, I think it's important that you point out another thing we always ask in our world is the generic ballot question. This is a partisan race. We know how partisan the times we're living in are. And what we find is when you just ask, if you were to vote for the Republican candidate in this race or the Democratic candidate, the Republican candidate leads 46 to 37 with 13% undecided, a +9 for the Republican. So this is definitely a seat that favors a Republican.
So you're saying that's a nameless Republican versus a nameless Democrat in this district?
That's the Miami Dolphins quarterback versus the New England Patriots quarterback without introducing Tua versus Mac Jones, right?
This guy's really trying to speak our language around here, Billy. He's really trying to dumb it down for us. He knows my audience doesn't want these numbers, so it's Billy Bean, it's on base percentage, it's Tua, it's Mac Jones. Knock it off, pollster man. We understand the language. Give us the polling numbers that suggest otherwise, that suggest that Ron is an even better candidate than Billy imagined.
All right, so dumbing it down even more so. So like I said, when you generically put them together, it's what did I just say? It was a 9-point lead for the Republican, 46 to 37 over the Democrat. But when you add names to that, when it's actually Jimenez versus Magill, something incredible happens. It's 42 for Jimenez, 38 for Magill, a +4 lead. But when you factor in the margin of error that we talked about at the outset, what that means is it could be a statistical tie. So again, not even having announced he's going to run, not even sure if he's going to run.
Well, he's not going to run. He keeps saying at every turn that he has no intention of running and that Billy's wasting his time. Basically, the only one that's profiting off of a Magill run is you and your pollsters making the money that Billy has paid in order to make sure that Ron Magill knows that he's got a lot of support, but support he will ignore because he has no intention of running.
It is a statistical dead heat. You've been doing this a long time, Fernand. How often does that occur with again, an entrenched incumbent versus a first time?
What is the magic that Ron Magill would be throwing away? How rare is his ability to get at power going after this kind of incumbent as somebody who's a total novice? All he's running on is name recognition.
Well, I mean, what he's,
Well, that's
I
not
guess,
true. He hasn't campaigned. He'll campaign. He'll have a campaign.
Well, but I'm saying at this moment through the polling, there has been no campaign. All people,
Correct, yes.
the information you have in front of you is just Ron Magill's name recognition against lifelong politician, guy with zero experience and no interest in doing any of this against person who is a career politician.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. People that I know in politics, first-time candidates, would literally kill their mom or their dad or their daughter.
Literally murder.
To have this type of support having never run before.
Homicide.
And why is it homicide?
That'll get you elected in Miami if you're willing to do that.
Manslaughter.
Not manslaughter, intentional homicide.
Downgraded to battery.
But the truth is, Dan, I mean, look, this is not a slam dunk. It doesn't mean that if Ron Magill jumps in the race, he's going to defeat Jimenez. But these truly are impressive numbers for someone who's never run, never hinted at being a public seeking official, or has ever been on a ballot before. What it tells me is that Ron Magill, as Billy thought, as you thought, as others have thought, absolutely, if he were to do this, would be a viable candidate.
How alarming is this for Jimenez?
Well, again, going back, at the risk of getting kicked off the show for being too sports talky, that 50% number there, the fact that Jimenez in the head-to-head of the race is only at 42%, that's 8 points below that threshold. If I were Jimenez, I'd be very concerned about these numbers.
What else is here that's interesting before we let you go? I saw that you slipped in a slam dunk there also in order to give us some literacy in what it is that you're talking about.
Sports talk is not how you get kicked off this show.
He is trying to do subliminally. He's trying to seduce our audience with his look at his Latino flair and his hair, and he's trying to speak the language of our audience in a way that's making me uncomfortable.
He is trying to save democracy is what he's trying to do. Okay,
he's trying to do that as well. One slam dunk at a time.
Democracy is vulnerable here in the United States, and when that is the case, as evidenced by in recent years, it is vulnerable around the world, and authoritarianism rises, and that's why it's not just the animal guy running for Congress. This is a pretty important thing that we're doing. It's not just a stunt. Dan.
As you try to...
I mean, it's also a stunt, but it's not just a stunt.
It's not just a stunt. Right. As you try and save democracy, one email notification over the air at a time, give us what other information here we need to have from all of your extensive 15,000 of calls, 400 of which were answered.
So the biggest other takeaway is that independent voters, which are the fastest growing segment of the electorate, will decide this race. And Ron does very well with independent voters. It would give him another inside straight, if you will, if he were to get in, that he could milk and potentially get him over the finish line. I'm not done with the sports metaphors. I got plenty more to go.
We are done with you, sports metaphor guy. Thank you. He's Fernand Amandi, managing partner, Ben Dixon and Amandi. Thank you, sir. We appreciate the time, the effort as Billy continues to try to save democracy and lovingly and adorably continues to fail. Ron Magill will stop answering his calls. We'll tell him to stop spending money, quit bringing attention to this. He has no interest in any of this, but run is something we're going to try and get off the ground. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Fernand.